Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning. Suzanne, are you guys ready to go? We'll call this meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners to order on November 19th, 2016. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chairman Johnston. Suzanne, can we do a roll call of the commission, please? Here. Here. Here.
Here.
And would the county advisory board members please stand and announce themselves? Thank you. We'll move on to item number 18, approval of the agenda. Chairman Wallace, for possible action, the commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. Any comments from the commission on the agenda? Go ahead, Chairman Drew, or Commissioner Drew.
I was going to say I'm not taking the title back. Just quickly, I know the folks out of Vegas, I think, have a 5 p.m. flight. I'm actually snowbirding it with them this time. So in lieu of that, knowing we have a heavy agenda, it would be my intent when it comes back from public comment to make item 23 our informational reports at the call of the chair, so that you have the discretion to call that at the end if you'd like, if we start getting light on commissioners.
I think that would be a good idea, Commissioner Drew. Further comments from the commission? Hearing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment in Las Vegas.
No comments in Las Vegas.
Public comment in Carson City. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion. Commissioner Drew.
I'd move to approve the agenda for today, Saturday, November 19th, as presented, with one exception, and that be that item number 23 be taken at the call of the chair.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Valentine to approve the agenda as presented, with the exception of item 23 being at the call of the chair. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously 9-0. Moving on to agenda item number 19, member items, announcements, and correspondence. Chairman Wallace and Secretary Wasley, informational. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Correspondence sent or received by Secretary Wosley may also be discussed. Any items from the commissioners? Commissioner Johnston? Oh. Director Wosley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did receive correspondence, but the correspondence I received was also CC'd to the commission. Consisted of input, excuse me, relative to the calling contest policy, included comments from the Nevada Guides and Outfitters Association. I know those letters were also forwarded to the commission, but there was some correspondence I received, numerous copies of in an email form that wasn't forwarded to the commission that I wanted to bring forward today, and that is a whole lot of praise for our law enforcement contingent in the field. It's not uncommon to get criticisms from the public for various frustrations, but this year in particular, just the sheer number of complimentary emails has been very reassuring, calling out individuals, several in the law enforcement division and some from other divisions as well. So I may put those together in a packet and provide them to the commission just so you can see the nature of some of those compliments and certainly the quantity of complimentary emails. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Director Wosley. Anything further from the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 20, County Advisory Boards to manage wildlife member items informational. County Advisory Board members to manage wildlife members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. County Advisory Boards? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 21. Oh, got one here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Mitch McVickers, White Pine County. We have had some, with the Cummins Lake project, with got rid of all the carp and the work that went into that. The community would like to thank the commission and the division for all that went on. It was nice to see people out there fishing again this summer. It was a pretty popular spot. We were curious on the adding more bass to the lake and when that was gonna, if that was gonna be this fall or in the spring, and then the boat dock, if that was still on the plans to get that all installed. And then one other issue or topic we've talked about was turkeys. There's a lot of turkeys on the park out in Unit 115, and I'm pretty sure the park would like us to get rid of some of them by transplanting them. When you go up to the upper campgrounds, it's full of turkeys, so just see if we can get some of that stuff kind of ball rolling on getting that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. The red button, right, or not, it's about in the middle and the bottom. Yep. There you go.
How's that? Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Bert Gurr from Elko County, and just as an informational item, there's been an access problem in Elko County in the northwestern part of the county in Area 6 through the Van Norman Ranch. They locked up the bottom access to Mount Blitzen and Toe Jam Mountain. I'm thinking 2 or 3 years ago. The department I know has worked on it a little bit. Ruby Mountain or Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation worked on it a little bit, but then the county commissioners got a complaint filed, and that kind of changed the dynamics of everything. I've met with 2 county commissioners because we can't have a full quorum without agendizing the thing, and I've met with the Van Normans. We've come together with the BLM. We've come together with the county. We have, I think, 5 cattle guards going to go in. We haven't yet discussed it much with the department, but where we're headed now is to get the labor and to get the stuff installed and get the department to provide more patrols in the area. And with that, I think that the Van Normans are going to open it back up and allow us through there. But I will bring you up to speed when we know more and after I met with Mr. Wasley and see what we can get done from the department.
Thank you, Bert. Paul?
For the record, Paul Dixon Clark. Since I walked in late, I'll apologize if I'm repeating something that was said before I walked in. And that I was asked to announce, like we did at our cab, is that September 24th was designated by a proclamation by the governor, Brian Sandoval, as Hunting and Fishing Day in Nevada, which coincided with the National Hunting and Fishing Day. And I didn't know how many of you knew that or others, but I thought it would be worth talking about. The other thing is that as the chairman of the Clark Cab, I was asked to get involved, and I'm working currently with the Department of Wildlife, and it has to do with landowner access, where people get incentive tags. And just so that you know that it's one of the things that's been brewing in the background with things. I got given the names. My name got given to several people who started calling me to assist people who are having issues because they think I'm outspoken. So I wanted to let this board know that I am working directly with the Department of Wildlife on that, and we're working to get a resolution that makes sense for everybody. If you hear anything, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Young.
Paul, since we were talking about that this morning, and that the Elko Cab brought that exact issue up. What's the rule, Tony, on that? If the Van Normans, do they get, if they were to say get incentive tags now, are they required to provide any access as it is, or what would be the process for the idea that Cab Chairman Dixon brought up, and certainly the Elko County Cab was asking the question about? Seems to be one and the same.
So many of our tag programs, whether they're compensation tags or incentive tags, have an access provision. As they were originally envisioned, were to be applied to an area in which you had a public mountain that perhaps may have been ringed with private land, and the intent was to allow an opportunity for sportsmen and women or others to access that public land by being able to cross that private land. Again, the simplified vision was that there was an existing easement, an improved road or a maintained road through that. Where we've struggled through the years with application of that is with the myriad of circumstances that exist out there, where perhaps one landowner may not have that designated route, or may have multiple routes and it requires designation of one. There's also language in each of those that refers to reasonable access, and so reasonable is in the eye of the beholder. Is it half mile? Is it a mile? Is it horse access? Is it foot access? And so the challenge for the department has been to consistently implement that. And so one biologist in one area might make a determination of what's reasonable. So what we've tried to do is standardize that through the years and try to have a smaller number of people responsible for the administration and implementation of that. But we still, every year, it seems like we have a new scenario that we haven't previously encountered, and it creates challenges in implementing it in a consistent way. So some of the discussions Mr. Dixon previously referred to have been ongoing with the DAG and determining what is reasonable access. And so, you know, in some instances you have multiple private landowners, and just because one landowner receives the incentive or the compensation, they don't, or the state doesn't have the authority to require adjacent landowners to provide access either. So these are all the kinds of scenarios and some of the scenarios that we're dealing with in Elko County. We also have checkerboard lands that add to the challenge, and then we have landowners that have different parcels interspersed between those public lands, and what is it access in one area? Is it access in multiple areas? And so some of these larger ranches create additional challenges. So we want to make sure that we're implementing it as consistently as possible around the state and also consistent with the intent. And so we're working with Mr. Dixon, and it sounds like soon to be Mr. Gurr as well, and we'll work with our DAGs and get clarification on their interpretation of that and make sure we're consistent as we apply that.
Thanks, Tony. That answered my question exactly. Thank you.
Just one last thing before I leave, since the topic got a little larger than me just announcing that, is that one of the things that I've talked about and with his area biologists and other things is maybe just as simple as something as when you get incentive tags, anybody who gets a tag in that area should be given an access map through that property. And currently, right now, it's kind of on an as needed or requested basis. So there are some things that I've talked with Tony about, and we're working to maybe make that simpler. I mean, this problem can be very complex, but I think we can get through it more simply if we since we're working together. I don't think it has to be a full-blown ugly thing. I think it can be done straightforward, and we can, as Tony said, we're not going to get it right the first time out of the chute here. We haven't got it right yet perfectly, but we'll keep marching down the road until we get something that it does work and is within the legal bounds as DAG Ward will guide us most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any further County Advisory Board input? Seeing none, I'll close agenda item number 20 and move to agenda item number 21. Fallon Naval Air Station and Nellis Air Force Base public land withdrawals update. Chairman Wallace and Habitat Division Administrator Alan Janay. Support material for the Fallon Naval Air Station available on www.frtcmmodernization.com, and support material for Nellis Air Force Base available at www.nttrleis.com. And I'll have both the gentlemen come up. I have James Sample from the Air Force and John Toll from the department to give us a little information on this. Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, just before we start on this agenda item, I'd like to disclose a conflict of interest on both A and B. The firm that I work for is in the process currently of providing technical assistance to Churchill County for technical comments on the Fallon Air Station expansion. We also do work for Lincoln County, who's providing inputs on the Nellis Air Force Base withdrawal, and while I'm not directly involved with that, I think I'm going to abstain from getting involved in either of these two agenda items.
Thank you, Commissioner Drew. So we'll...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Attorney General Harry Ward for the record.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Drew, if you're not going to be involved in this, it might be appropriate for you just to come down in the audience then.
Okay, I would request my excusal for this item by the chair.
Yes, you're excused.
Good morning, remaining commissioners. John Tall, Habitat Division, Wildlife Staff Specialist in the Reno office. This morning, what we'd like to do is go through a couple presentations on some of the information and issues related to these two legislative withdrawals. With that in mind, we'll start with Jim's presentation on Nellis, and then I'll take over with a little bit after that.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, thank you so much for letting me be here. My name's Jim Sample. I work for the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Installations, Environment, and Energy. I've been given specific guidance to answer any questions that anyone in Nevada has about this issue. It is of utmost importance to us to be transparent in this process, to accept all input, because of how important the NTTR is to us. I have a bunch of slides here. A lot of these slides were the ones we showed in our public scoping meetings. I'm going to blow through most of these pretty quick so we can answer questions, and I can come back and address anything as we go through them. First, kind of the purpose, I want to give a little background on the requirements, what the NTTR means to us, what we can't meet now, discuss, I say proposed alternatives, and so when we talk about proposed alternatives from an NEPA standpoint, but honestly, these are just ideas at the moment. We had to start the discussion somewhere. There have been absolutely no decisions made whatsoever by the Air Force. I'll come back to that several times during this. Discuss the environmental process, discuss the schedule, and then ask for your inputs. These I'll go through pretty quickly. In short, this slide and the next few slides, the Nevada Test and Training Range is one of the most important assets, not just to the Air Force, but to DoD in general. It is the premier location where we test and train our fighters before they go into battle. It is the ultimate ball field, practice field, between the billions of dollars U.S. taxpayers have invested in it over the years, the sheer size of it. We can do things there that you cannot do anywhere else in the world. If we're going to practice a specific mission before we do it in combat, we do it here. If we're going to practice new techniques, new ways of fighting, we do it here before we do it anywhere else. People have heard of Red Flag, we've heard all that, and you can go through the slides. The other thing associated with that is not only do we do the new training here, before we give equipment to a warfighter, we test it here also. Associated with all that investment we have done on the NTTR, the equipment, the infrastructure, is billions of dollars of equipment that allow us to do feedback and see how the weapons work and things of that sort. I can talk about these in extreme detail if anyone wants. The legislative EIS. So we are doing a legislative EIS. The lands that make up the NTTR expire for our use in 2021. So we have to give a proposal to Congress in 2020 on what we would like to do with the lands in the future. Do we want to give them back? Do we need them? Do we need to more capability? In short, yes, we need more capability on the NTTR. As our weapon systems have advanced, up until this point, weapon systems, especially aircraft, their advancement has been in the physical realm. Faster, higher, better turning. With what we're calling fifth generation weapons now, the advancement is in an information area, almost information age. How far they can see, how many things they can engage at the same time. The NTTR, being the best in the world, still doesn't have the capability we need to train with our new systems or test our new systems. So we're looking for improvements in the quality of the training, the flexibility of that training, the timeliness, I can get into that a little bit, and the variability. When I say variability, if you're training a pilot to engage something, if he always is doing it the same way every single time, it's not good training. So we need to mix it up for them a little bit. I'll go through these a little bit. This is kind of just where we're fighting now, how we're fighting. Skip through that. Why the NTTR? Beyond the billions we've spent in it, you've seen this. This is 1 day of civil traffic in the country. You can see the big hole, that is the NTTR. We are probably not going to be able to expand the airspace for the NTTR anymore. You can see all the lines that go around it, and the airlines can tell us to the dime how much in gas and greenhouse gases we cause them to go around the NTTR. And we're not going to get anything else like that in the country if you look at that map. So it is where we have to do this type of stuff. I get a little bit on the NTTR itself. This is the NTTR just north of Las Vegas. You can see the gray area is the DoD land. In the southern part of the range, this surrounded by the crimson thing, is where we overlap with the Fish and Wildlife Service. It's the Desert National Wildlife Range also. It was set up a few years before the range was set up. Most of the proposals I'll talk about in a few minutes deal with that area of it. We have pretty much good access. We can do what we need to do up north. Down south, where we overlap the Desert National Wildlife Range, we are extremely limited. To add to those limitations, the purple you see over top of that has been proposed wilderness since 1972, or 1974. It's been sitting there since 1974. There's been no action on it. We can't drive in that area. You can't drive. No one can drive in that hashed area. It is being treated as wilderness, even though it's only been proposed since 1974. Yeah, there are some cherry stem roads through that, but we cannot go off the roads. If you've been in that area, you know it. Concentrate on the southern area. Everyone sees that huge map I showed before with all the gray area and think the Air Force or DoD has control of that southern area. That's not true. If you look at the white boxes in this map, those are our impact areas. That's actually where we drop bombs. Most of them are inert, but we do some live operations out there too. Actually, we probably do more live operations anywhere. But most the weapons we drop out there are inert. That is those white areas are the only places the Air Force is allowed to disturb anything. That's the only place we can put equipment, only place we can put targets, only place we can pretty much do anything. That's what we're limited to. The rest of it is the refuge. We're allowed to fly over it, but we're not allowed to do much else in it. So getting on to, this will take quite a while. to talk about. But in short, up north, you can see the threat range. Because we can place equipment anywhere up north, we can put the enemy, what pretend to be enemy forces, surface-to-air missiles, out in front of the targets. Think about a football game. So you have the defensive line out in front of the quarterback, protecting the quarterback. You don't have him directly on the quarterback. We can do that up front, up north. Down south, we have to have the defenses on top of the targets. That's not the way the enemy does it. It's not the way you would do it anywhere else. What we'd like to do is be able to put our fake systems, for lack of a better term, the things that pretend they're enemy air defenses, out in front of the target areas. So our men and women have to fight through those to get to them. We're not talking about a whole lot of disturbance. We're talking about 150 foot by 150 foot pads out there with gas generators, no power lines, nothing of that sort. But I'll get to that in a little bit. Going through a little bit more. So this, being able to put some things out in front would kind of replicate what we have up north, what we can do down south, so we have more capacity to train our men and women. Another aspect down south where we're limited to, once again, because we can only put our, this actually gets into, we only can put our targets in those hash boxes at the moment. We have a thing called weapon safety footprints. When we're dropping a bomb on a target, we have to keep people out of anywhere there's a 1 in 1 million chance of any part of that weapon landing, okay? So even though we're hitting that, in this example, that red area is a target, that's what we're aiming at. We hit that 99.99% of the time. We have to keep everyone out of that red circle you see there. That red circle is determined by how fast, how high, and where the airplane's flying from when it drops the weapon. So right now, in the system that we do, that yellow triangle kind of gives an idea where we're limited. So the pilot has to fly from this angle to this angle at this altitude, at this speed, to keep that red circle in the area we control. What we would like to do is be able to let the pilot do as he would do in warfighting. We give, in the way we do plan a mission, is we give the pilot and the planners, this is the target you need to hit. Then he decides the best way to get into it. But we'd like to be able to do that here, not give them artificial constraints. Say, okay, this is the target you have to hit, how would you go in and hit it? And give him the flexibility. Now what that does is that increase that yellow circle is, okay, I could come in from any direction. What that does is make the red circle where we have to keep people out bigger. So this gets into an access issue. We have to keep people out during that mission of that circle. So I mentioned before that we're doing a legislative EIS. EIS is we have to prevent alternatives. Once again, these are ideas we're just throwing up against the wall. None of these are set in stone. With lack of two things. Proposal 1 is status quo. Don't change anything. Proposal 2, actually, I'll talk about 2 and 3 in a second because those are the big ones. 4 just deals with the length of withdrawal. Right now we have to come back to Congress every 20 years to withdraw this, or renew the withdrawal. We're looking at making it 20, 50 years or indefinite, so we don't have to come back and do this process, multi-million-dollar process every few years. The 5th one is no action alternative. It's required by law that we look at that. The no action alternative in this is giving the land back. That's a huge undertaking. The cleanup out there is unbelievable what we had to do. So those 3 are what they are. Let me talk about the 2 that probably affect you all the most. Alternative 2. I showed you that other map before that shows you, actually, where is it? This map. Where we're limited on the southern area, what we are proposing is looking at some of this area down here, we'd like to open up that. This is current area that no one has access to other than in the sheep hunt, we open up some of the southern area. We are looking at working with Fish and Wildlife Service to allow more access, allow us to put emitters, allow us to do things outside those boxes. That's in the current range. That would give us a lot more flexibility. Doesn't affect many other people. It is an issue for conservation overall in the area that's currently locked off from everyone else. Proposal 3, alternatives 3, are the big ones. We're looking at expanding in 3 separate areas. I'll just go down to this map. The first one, 3A, is about 17,000 acres, a little north of Beatty. We have, in this area, we've started to do a lot more UAV operations. People call them drones. We're firing Hellfires off of drones. We have some targets up here we would like to use them for. The weapon safety footprint when we're firing off a drone is a little bit bigger than when we're firing off other things. So we would need to control access to about additional 17,000 acres. That's still in flux. We're talking to people that are looking at the bike trails out there. We'll see what's going on with that. The second area, 3B down here, this is an area that most people actually think is already our land. There's a fence around it. It's not our fence. The only road to that area is actually through the range already. We would actually like to close that off or make that part of the range for a few reasons. One, safety and security. One, allows us to put some more JTACs, Joint Terminal Air Controllers, out there to look at some targets. That's about 50,000 acres down there. The big one is this. We refer to as the Alamos. It's about 230,000 acres or so. Don't get caught up on this map. This map is an area we're looking at we need to expand capability. What we're asking the public and we're asking you all is, what do you do out there? When do you do it? How do you do it? We have a requirement. We need to expand our weapon safety footprints. We need to put some of our emitters out farther. This is the area we would like to do it, not all this area necessarily. So we are looking for the public, and we're looking for what times of year do you use it, what areas do you use, what roads do you use. Let us know so we can go in and then we develop our proposal, how we would do this. That's it in a nutshell. We haven't decided any of this. We had public meetings for 2 weeks earlier last month where we received a lot of good input. They're already modifying our views on this area, what areas we cut off, what areas we wouldn't. The public scoping goes through December 10th. We'll still accept comments after that, but our official cutoff is December 10th, and then we'll start developing an actual proposal to come out a little bit more with more detail to present to everyone as we develop the draft document. Let's go really quickly. This is what we're looking at in our document. These will be all the resources we will analyze, the impact of anything we're going to do out there, both on the current lands and any new lands. You don't need to go through every one of those. This is the schedule for the legislative environmental impact statement. We have to have most of our stuff done by November 2018, where we submit it to BLM. This will be a DOI proposal. This is not our land. We withdraw this from BLM and DOI. So they're the ones that propose it to them in concert with the president, propose it to Congress, and then Congress gets to do whatever they want. We are just documenting all the possible options, and then it'll be through the lawmaking process. That's actually what gets decided. The most important slide on this. I just flew through this, which is probably an hour presentation, and give a lot more detail. That www.nttr.leis. It has all these slides I showed you and more. Has interactive maps where you can go in and look at all that stuff. It has comment submission forms. Please go to that, share to that. Let us know anything you have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I went through that very quick. It was quite the fire hose. And actually, do you want to?
John Tall. So I'm happy to entertain what the commission would like to do, but I could go over a couple slides detailing a little bit of that eastern portion of the range if you guys would like, or if you want to just have questions, either way.
If you got a couple of slides, I think we'd like to see those.
Thank you. Your mouse doesn't want to work. Oh, it's this thing. It's taking over. Turn it on. Apologies for this. So just two slides that sort of relay some of the overarching issues with the eastern portion, that approximately 230,000 acres. And what I'll do is just show kind of from a north to south perspective. Those of you familiar, and for those that you are not, the Pahranagat National Wildlife Refuge is adjacent to this northern portion just to the northeast. And that's a primary access for hunting activities into that portion of the Desert Refuge. It's also important for wildlife viewing opportunities. Quite a unique set of resources in terms of the remoteness of that location and the quality of the habitats in there. If you can see, and I apologize, the colors don't come through very well, the green dots represent small game wildlife water developments that have been put in place by sportsman groups in the department over the years. There's also in this slide 2 yellow ones that are, let's see if I can get this to work, one right there and one right down here, and those are bighorn sheep wildlife water developments. The red arrows indicate where access routes would be potentially closed off depending on how the withdrawal occurs, but in the current proposal, if it was closed off at the boundary, then those would be closures. So we'd lose a lot of access to these resources here. If we go into the southern portion of this, there's additional developments, water developments all right, so my apologies. This is a focus in on the north portion. This one shows both the north and the south a little bit from a farther up perspective. On the left-hand side is the northern half of that 230,000 acre withdrawal, and on the right is the southern portion. So again, there's a few more additional bighorn sheep guzzlers further south as you get in there. A total of 15 guzzlers, 6 are big game, 9 are small game. And again, as I mentioned, there are some non-game as well as game opportunities that could be lost. Importantly, I think the areas that might have challenges with how the hunt is undertaken, or if it'll be able to be undertaken, are in the desert lakes and the desert range, and the sheep range, particularly the access coming in from the west side of the sheep range, which is a little more gentle, a little more accessible. May be closed off. And I'll leave that up if you'd like, and that's really all I had to show on this, and certainly any questions that you guys have, we're happy to entertain.
I want to thank you guys for the presentation before we get into the questions. I appreciate you coming all the way out here and giving us the information. Questions from the commission for either Jim or John? Mr. Johnson.
This may be a question that can't be answered, but I guess if we talk about this withdrawal of land and making the test area larger, we talk about impact to access and recreational opportunities, but what would be the impact of the military activity on habitat and the wildlife itself that's in that area?
Once again, we will analyze that, but I can't say it till the analysis is done. It will be almost no impact. Most of what we're using up there is for buffer land, so it won't be people driving around there for the most part. Most people that we actually envision out there would be special operations folks, which are leave no trace people already, mostly on foot, and even that would be probably to a very limited extent. The primary use would be buffer land, where we just have to keep people out for safety reasons. So we're not talking about bombing any additional area, even in the if we get the southern range, more access in there. We're talking about the actual impact areas will stay exactly where they are now. We're not talking about any new impact areas, no new bombing areas, if that makes sense.
And I guess a follow-up question, would it limit water development projects or other habitat projects in the area?
It could, but I think we'd work hard not to. We have a lot of those going on our range already, and we're committed to work with everyone on those. I can't say it won't, but we're committed to have as little impact as possible.
Just to follow, if you don't mind, thank you. To your question, Mr. Johnson, the issue about impacts, the agency has some questions still about if we need a safety buffer for humans, what does that mean for wildlife then that are in those areas too? Particularly the unknown effects of what these emitters might have on not just resident but also transient wildlife, migratory birds, species that do move around, but are there going to be potential impacts or effects to those populations? And we honestly don't know at this point.
And that's what we're looking at in the environmental documentation.
Commissioner Young.
I mean, it's more a comment, and you guys may not know the answer to this, but Area 13, an area that I've hunted most of my life, which is north of Las Vegas and primarily in Lincoln County and White Pine County and Nye, it kind of encompasses all of them. Almost smack dab in the center of the state. It'd be, if you're familiar with Nevada at all, it'd be, it'd start about 20 miles south of Ely, Nevada, and it'd be west of it. And it's kind of a long, thin area that goes down to the highway there that goes from Alamo through Rachel and over to eventually to Tonopah. I've encountered fences in that area where you can't hunt, but most importantly, I've always liked to get high up into the mountains, and I've noticed the aircraft flying at an exceedingly low altitude in there, and some of you have probably experienced sonic booms and that on a repetitive basis during the hunting season, and I certainly understand the need for practice, and I had an opportunity to fly in an F-16. It's a ride from the general at Nellis Air Force Base a few years ago, and it was quite an experience. I've been a pilot, a helicopter pilot, and fixed wing, and in law enforcement, and I kind of get it, but I don't get it. And I just wondered if you guys have done studies on the impact with wildlife and the noise in particular, because that's what you as a hunter experience the most. And there's no doubt in my mind, and after talking to this individual, they see hunters and they intentionally, on occasion, fly very, very low. I'm not saying to scare people, but I'm going to tell you that it has to affect the wildlife and the deer and the elk hunting and probably everything else. And I just wondered if you guys have studied that issue, and is there going to be more of that with the expansion?
Let me deal with one thing first. He'll deal with the wildlife. But if by regulation we have to avoid people and built structures, so if a pilot is aiming or flies close to you and he sees a hunter, let us know, let public affairs at Nellis know, because he is doing something he or she is not supposed to be doing, and we take that very seriously. So please let us know that.
Yeah. That's like calling a police department where I worked for 30 years and saying, hey, don't turn your sirens on when you're going to a call. Okay, but yeah.
On the wildlife specific side, there have been some studies specifically looking at desert bighorn sheep in Arizona, noise-related impacts, and some of those studies that I'm familiar with, and there may be more current ones that I'm not, have shown short-term elevated rates, heart rates, and those sort of physiological responses, but with intermittent noise, they show some habituation to it and seem to indicate that either it's an unknown long-term effect or is perceived to not have much of a long-term effect. With other wildlife, there are some additional studies. Sage grouse comes to mind, where there's been a lot of study on noise related to breeding behaviors and how those are affected. Again, typically it's the more persistent noises that have a larger effect. The question becomes, and I think we'll talk about this in the Fallon presentation because there's a lot more airspace activity that we're looking at, what level of activity, training activity, and persistence, and whether or not there can be seasonal periods where those don't occur, those types of things. But it is an issue for wildlife, but it entirely depends on how frequent it is.
Yeah, I know when I was young that sonic booms in Las Vegas were an everyday occurrence. And of course, it would break windows and shake the city this was a very small town back then. And I lived out kind of towards Altoona Nellis on Las Vegas Boulevard North, and they stopped doing it. And I can't remember the last time I have heard or felt a sonic boom in Vegas. I don't know, Paul, it's kind of gone away. Paul grew up there as well too, and I know he knows what I'm saying. So I don't know how to prevent that in the wildlife management arena, particularly for some sensitive areas, but I'm just wondering if there's any possibility, because in the bigger picture, I think all the encroachment by us has caused our habitat and our wildlife to suffer, and I'm very pro-military and pro-defense, but I'm just wondering how. To me, that seems to be the thing that really would affect the wildlife, because they got to feel it like we do.
And we are looking at that. We just actually collared another 21 sheep last week that we're trying to look at some of the effects. Getting to your hunting comment, those are exactly the things, the comments we're looking for in this, and please go to hunting seasons. One of the most important times when you're most likely to be out there at different areas. Those are the things we need to know, because once again, we haven't made any decisions on this, and we have complete freedom to meld, turn on access, turn off access different times, use it when most other people don't want to use it. So those are the things we're trying to find out now, and why we are going everywhere throughout Nevada trying to let people know about this.
And I would think that the department would be in probably the best position to identify the specific periods and the areas where the population of wildlife, particularly the hunted wildlife, is most sensitive, and we're, perhaps give you some guidance as well. And I don't know if the department's willing to provide that information. I'm just one hunter, one reference person, and you're lucky if you get a tag in 13 anymore. Now, it takes every 3 or 4 or 5 years you might luck out and get one if you got enough bonus points. So I don't have that many more hunting seasons left up there in my life, but for the future, I think it's something worth talking about.
Two things. First, the department is a official cooperating agency on this, so they are working with us hand in hand on it. And second, just so you know, I've been given direct guidance from the highest levels in the Air Force. We will not affect the sheep hunt. We will do everything we can in our possibility. Now, the issue becomes
sheep. I'm a hunter of deer and elk, but there's some sheep guys in this room.
But I just want to throw that out. I didn't say that in my original presentation. I've been told several times to make sure that is known. We will not affect that. But we're also, I was talking to John about this beforehand, we want to know all the other hunting activities out there so we can be as least impact as possible.
And as far as access goes, is it just going to be a certain time of the year that you will restrict access? Will it be a known restricted time, or is it going to be tomorrow during your sheep hunt you're not allowed to go in there type of deal? Or do you have any information as far as how deep the restrictions will go and how long during the year they'll be in place?
No, honestly, no decisions have been made on that whatsoever. From an access standpoint, the reason we do it access is it's a safety issue. So if, say, there were turn on and turn off, it would be notified several weeks in advance. So you'd have a schedule probably months, if not a year in advance. Like, these are when it will be active, these are when it will not be, all around the other activities that go on out there and what people think are important.
I had a couple questions. Some of them were previously addressed, but in terms of those target areas that are established, you're stating that you're not going to make any new targets. You just want to be able to come in at different angles to keep up with the technology, and I wanted to go over that. But how large are those target areas? What's the relative size? And do we have photos of, like, when you mentioned there was cleanup, what does that mean? Like, how often do you shoot at that one target area? I mean, I'm assuming at some point you may have to develop a new target area because you may have decimated an area so much. I'm not sure how that works.
A few things with that. Yes, to answer the first part of the question, we're not proposing any new target areas. And it's interesting, if you ever get a chance, and we're going to try to get more people out on range, people picture the target areas as the moonscape of moon craters everywhere. Nothing could be further from the truth. Some of that land out there in our target areas is some of the most pristine land in the country, because people tend to be the biggest impact. Our weapons hit almost exactly where they are supposed to every single time, so a small area might be disturbed. Most of the time that with inert, which is just a big piece of metal going into the ground. We do, I can get you, I don't want to do it here because I might do something wrong, but we have very specific cleanup standards in the Air Force where we go clean up every single target on a standard basis. Clear out any, do a surface clean, but yes, we do clean it. I'm trying to think what.
The relative size of the target area?
I believe the target is about 110,000 acres total. I'll get you the specific answer on that.
Commissioner Valentine.
Regarding access, and Grant, you took part of my question away, but what, in the process, is it intended that if the transfer does occur, that you'll still have access for maintenance of water projects, et cetera? And if that transfer does occur, what's the possibility that it'll be closed indefinitely?
I doubt it'd be, I mean, I can't, I would say the chances are small it'd be closed indefinitely, and we would work completely on access. We have access, we currently get access on our current range to do maintenance on water projects. So I don't see that being reduced. The issue with safety is non-cooperating, you will still have access, would be the easiest way to say it.
Just John Tall, one comment on that. We've had, I think, really good cooperation with access to the Pint Waters. There's water development, at least one in there. That is one of the special hunt areas where it is a limited 2-week window. But we've had good cooperation. But it is always a concern, I think, with a new commander. You can have changes in how that cooperation is maintained or not. Also turnover, some of the existing staff that we've worked with down there could, you know, there are unknowns relative to those questions that you're asking.
Anything further from the commission? Commissioner Hubbs.
Just out of curiosity, how do you, I mean, I know part of it may be confidential, but in terms of access, I'm assuming you can't gate or fence everything off. Is it just signage that, I mean, especially if you're going to have a huge zone around these target areas, it's quite a bit of area. And then also just in terms of wildlife, is there any type of clearance that you do on the ground before you shoot, or is the frequency of testing so much so that you just kind of write off that area in your EIS as being open to susceptible damage in terms of resources?
Actually, part of this, and I didn't get into this in the presentation because it gets way into the weeds of how environmental documentation is done. This document that we're submitting to Congress is what we're calling programmatic in nature. So it's very broad brush saying we would like to have access to this area. These are the general things we would like to do in those areas. Would that be allowable? What it does not allow us to do is actually do anything in those areas. Any specific use we would propose in the future, something different than we're doing now, we would have to do another full-up EIS on that, which would have the very detailed environmental analysis on anything we would do different than we're doing now, if that makes sense. So this is allowing us, okay, you can use that, or you can close that off. It's allowing us the ability to do that. Anything we would do in the future, we'd actually have to come and do this whole process over again, the public comment, scoping, analysis, to that point of doing something majorly different than we're doing right now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I was kind of looking more at probably the things that you will address in an EIS, so you're just saying this is cursory at this point.
It's cursory, but we are doing an awful lot of analysis on this, on the general impacts of this type of operations, what it would have on all the species, plant life, public access, economic development, and everything else associated with that.
Further questions from the commission? Hearing none, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to come out and present to us today. And I know you're probably trying to catch an airplane, but I think, okay. So I think we're good with your portion, and we'll move on with the Fallon Naval Air Station portion.
Stay up here because he may be able to help assist if there's some military-specific questions that arise.
Just, I'm not allowed to speak for the Navy. I can answer basic military questions, but I cannot speak for the Navy on any of this, on these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. You have a good voice, Harry. Thank you. The Fallon Naval Air Station is undertaking a similar process where they also are due for withdrawal renewal, and so their training range facilities, they've undertaken some significant new direction that they would like to move forward with. I do want to make a general comment that through the process with Nellis, we were brought in early and were engaged early. With Fallon, we are in the same position currently as the general public, where we were presented what their plans were, and we will probably become a cooperating agency soon, but our first look at this was pretty much when everyone else was able to take a look at it. So briefly, this first slide on the Fallon Range Training Complex gives an overview of what their airspace changes are. Those are sort of the big open polygons in yellow and red. And I'll show some more detail on the ground stuff, but those gray, darker gray areas are existing closed areas or training sites, but also it includes some other things that they don't operate in, like Hawthorne right now. Currently, there's about 12,000 square nautical miles of airspace and 230,000 of controlled land. They do both live and inert ordnance releases. They provide logistical support out of the Fallon Naval Air Station for their training activities, and their withdrawal is due to expire in November of 2021. They plan to renew about 200,000 acres that are currently withdrawn, and their initial desires are to withdraw an additional 600,000 acres approximately, and acquire some 65,000 acres of non-federal lands. Those are private lands in the checkerboard up closer to Highway Interstate 80. And then they want to modify the vertical airspace. So I'll talk about each of those a little bit more as I move forward through this presentation. Here you can see, this is from their maps, an overview of the renewal and expansion. And just a quote from their website, I'll read that. Modernizing the land ranges would improve both ground and air training by providing a more realistic training environment and acceptable distances and altitudes for the releases of weapons. Current training is limited due to inadequate space. So the primary issues that we've seen in our limited time for review are that there's quite a bit of habitat improvement that's occurred with wildlife water developments in some of these expansion areas. Right now there's 10 of 15 big game guzzlers that fall within their boundary that would be in areas that they are recommending for closure from the public. And then there's 23 of about 50 total small game guzzlers that are within their boundaries that would also be closed to public access. So those present some questions about our ability to continue to maintain and manage those, as well as what may occur with the habitats and the populations that we've invested considerable time, and many of the user groups have also invested time in. The main area of conflict is this Bravo, I believe 17 or 19, I'm sorry, it slips my mind currently which one it is, but basically on the west side you have the Sand Springs Mountains, the Sand Springs Range, and that's where that series of small game guzzlers in light blue show up. There's also several bighorn sheep guzzlers in there. We do have a thriving population of both bighorn sheep and chukar that are certainly destinations for many of our hunting constituents. And then also, if you look, this darker blue portion in the south is all intended to be closed to the public. You also get the Monte Cristo Mountains, and then there's another bighorn sheep herd there that's important in terms of our management and also user group opportunities. So the bighorn sheep, as I mentioned, the Sand Springs Range, and then the access associated with that is a primary issue, as well as Monte Cristo Mountains. There would also be additional loss of access in Fairview Range. Again, bighorn sheep there, as well as some water developments. And then there's potential access issues that are still not very clear related to the still waters including potentially the east side of the Stillwater National Wildlife Refuge. In a meeting with the Fallon folks, they did assure us that the road would remain open, but it currently goes through parcels that are noted for closure, so we're not sure how they'll address that issue, but I imagine they will. They've told us they would. Also, some access into the Clan Alpines and the east side of the Stillwater Range. In addition to bighorn sheep, occupied habitat, which is noted here in the orange outline with the very small icon of bighorn sheep scattered through it that you can't tell is that the black dots. There's also a fair amount of crucial winter mule deer range. And then in Bell Flat, that's become a pretty high quality pronghorn hunt area, and that would also fall within the closed to public access. As far as greater sage grouse, we took a look at what the